Ladies and gentlemen, this is Intervlog. I said this is Intervlog, your go-to source for in-depth analysis, breaking news, and thought-provoking discussions on global affairs. Here, we delve into the stories shaping our world, uncovering the complexities behind headlines and bringing you perspectives that matter. Today, we're diving into a controversial and game-changing development in Middle Eastern politics that has sent shockwaves through the international community. U.S. President Donald Trump has proposed one of the most radical ideas in modern geopolitical history: a U.S. takeover of Gaza and the permanent displacement of its Palestinian population. This unprecedented announcement, made during his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, has reignited debates about international law, humanitarian concerns, and the shifting dynamics of Middle Eastern power struggles. In this episode, we'll break down Trump's proposal, analyze its implications, and explore reactions from key players, including Palestinian leaders, Arab nations, and international bodies. What does this mean for the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict? Is it even feasible, legally or practically? And how does this fit into Trump's broader foreign policy approach? From his vision of transforming Gaza into a bustling economic hub, to the stark warnings from Hamas and Arab nations rejecting forced displacement, this story is packed with high-stakes diplomacy, political maneuvering, and humanitarian dilemmas. While Trump argues that this plan presents an opportunity for economic revitalization, critics see it as a blatant violation of international norms, drawing parallels to past colonialist interventions that disregarded the sovereignty of indigenous populations. As always, Intervlog is committed to delivering well-researched, balanced, and engaging content. We'll examine not only the political ramifications, but also the human stories at the heart of this conflict. How would such a plan impact the lives of the 2 million Palestinians currently residing in Gaza? What would be the consequences of relocating an entire population to neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan, who have already voiced strong opposition? We'll also take a closer look at Netanyahu's response. The Israeli Prime Minister has long been known for his hardline stance on security and territorial control, but his praise of Trump's bold idea raises new questions about Israel's future plans. Could this signal a shift in the region's power dynamics? And how will other global powers, like the European Union, China, and Russia, react to such a proposal? We encourage you, our viewers, to join the conversation. Leave your thoughts in the comments, share your insights, and let us know where you stand on this explosive topic. Should the U.S. intervene in Gaza? Is forced displacement a solution or a recipe for greater conflict? And what role should the international community play in finding a sustainable resolution to this decades-long crisis? At Intervlog, we don't just report the news, we analyze, dissect, and challenge the narratives shaping our world. If you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned as we take you on a deep dive into one of the most polarizing global issues of our time. Let's get started. Trump proposes U.S. takeover of Gaza and says all Palestinians should leave. The president met with the Israeli Prime Minister at the White House, meeting in person with another world leader for the first time since returning to power. President Trump declared on Tuesday that the United States should seize control of Gaza and permanently displace the entire Palestinian population of the devastated seaside enclave, one of the most brazen ideas that any American leader has advanced in years. Hosting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel at the White House, Mr. Trump said that all 2 million Palestinians from Gaza should be moved to countries like Egypt and Jordan because of the devastation wrought by Israel's campaign against Hamas after the attack of October 7, 2023. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip and we will do a job with it too, Mr. Trump said at a news conference Tuesday evening. We'll own it and be responsible for disposing of unexploded munitions and rebuilding Gaza into a mecca for jobs and tourism. Sounding like the real estate developer he once was, Mr. Trump vowed to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. While the president framed the matter as a humanitarian imperative and an economic development opportunity, he effectively reopened a geopolitical Pandora's box with far-reaching implications for the Middle East. Control over Gaza has been one of the major flashpoints of the Arab-Israeli conflict for decades, and the idea of relocating its Palestinian residents recalls an era when great Western powers redrew the maps of the region and moved around populations without regard to local autonomy. The notion of the United States taking over territory in the Middle East would be a dramatic reversal for Mr. Trump, who first ran for office in 2016, vowing to extract America from the region after the Iraq War, and decried the nation-building of his predecessors. In unveiling the plan, Mr. Trump did not cite any legal authority giving him the right to take over the territory, nor did he address the fact that forcible removal of a population violates international law and decades of American foreign policy consensus in both parties. He made the proposal even as the United States was seeking to secure the Israel-Hamas ceasefire's second phase, which is designed to free the remaining hostages in Gaza and bring a permanent end to the fighting. Negotiators had described their task as exceptionally difficult even before Mr. Trump announced his idea of ousting Palestinians from their homes. Hamas, which has ruled in Gaza for most of the past 2 decades and is reestablishing control there now, immediately rejected mass relocation on Tuesday, and Egypt and Jordan have rejected the idea of taking in a large influx of Palestinians, given the fraught history, burden, and destabilizing potential. Sami Abu Zuhri, a senior Hamas official, said that Mr. Trump's proposed relocation was a recipe for creating chaos and tension in the region. Our people in Gaza will not allow for these plans to come to pass, he said in a statement distributed by Hamas. What is needed is the end of the occupation against our people, not expelling them from their land. Mr. Trump waved aside the opposition from Arab countries like Egypt and Jordan, suggesting that his powers of persuasion would convince them. They say they're not going to accept, Mr. Trump said during an earlier meeting with Mr. Netanyahu in the Oval Office. I say they will. Mr. Netanyahu, sitting at Mr. Trump's side, smiled with satisfaction as the president first outlined his ideas. Later, during the joint news conference, the Israeli Prime Minister heaped praise on Mr. Trump. You cut to the chase, Mr. Netanyahu told Mr. Trump. You see things others refuse to see. You say things others refuse to say. And after the jaws dropped, people scratch their heads and they say, you know, he's right. This is the kind of thinking that will reshape the Middle East and bring peace, he added. In his remarks, Mr. Trump insisted that Palestinians would quickly warm to his idea. I don't think people should be going back to Gaza, Mr. Trump said. I heard that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They live like hell. They live like they're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living, and the only reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. He suggested that nations in the region could finance the resettlement of Gazans to new places, perhaps a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land that would provide better living conditions either as a single territory or as many as a dozen. It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return, he said, without offering details of what that would entail. Asked how many Palestinians he had in mind, he said all of them, adding, I would think that they would be thrilled. Pressed repeatedly on whether he would force them to go even if they did not want to, Mr. Trump said, I don't think they're going to tell me no. Gaza has a long and tortured history of conflict and crisis. Many Gazans are descendants of Palestinians who were forced out of their homes during the 1948 war after Israel's independence, an event known around the Arab world as the Nakba, or catastrophe. Now, Mr. Trump is suggesting that they be displaced again, even though the Geneva Conventions, international agreements that the United States and Israel both ratified. bar forcible relocation of populations. Egypt captured Gaza during the 1948 war and controlled it until Israel seized it, along with other Palestinian territory, in a 1967 war against a coalition of Arab nations seeking to destroy the Jewish state. Palestinians in Gaza waged resistance for years afterward, and Israel eventually withdrew from Gaza in 2005. But within 2 years, Hamas, an avowed enemy of Israel that the United States and other nations have designated a group, took control of the enclave and used it as a base for war against Israel. For years, Israel blockaded Gaza while Hamas fired rockets and staged attacks, culminating in the October 2023 operation that killed 1,200 people and led to the capture of 250 more. Israel retaliated with an unrelenting military operation that, in the weeks since a ceasefire that President Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s administration negotiated and that Mr. Trump pushed came into effect, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who were repeatedly displaced throughout the war have returned to their homes in Gaza to find them and their communities demolished. Steve Witkoff, Mr. Trump's Middle East envoy, visited Gaza last week and said it would take 10 to 15 years to reconstruct. If you had damage that was 1/100th of what I saw in Gaza, nobody would be allowed to go back to their homes, Mr. Witkoff told reporters on Tuesday. That's how dangerous it is. There's 30,000 unexploded munitions. It is buildings that could tip over at any moment. There's no utilities. Picking up on the theme later in the day, Mr. Trump said it was not realistic to have Palestinians return to Gaza. They have no alternative right now but to leave, Mr. Trump told reporters before Mr. Netanyahu's arrival. I mean, they're there because they have no alternative, he said. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. He added, I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. Mr. Trump suggested the resettlement of Palestinians would be akin to the New York real estate projects he built his career on. If we could find the right piece of land, or numerous pieces of land, and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure, he said. I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza. I do see a long-term ownership position for the United States, Mr. Trump said, adding that everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent. Mr. Trump's summit with Mr. Netanyahu was his first in-person meeting with another world leader since his return to power 2 weeks ago. It was part of a multi-day visit to Washington by Mr. Netanyahu that was meant to demonstrate the close ties between the two leaders. Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu forged a close partnership during the president's first term, but fell out toward its end over a number of issues, including the Israeli leader's willingness to congratulate Mr. Biden on his victory in the 2020 election, which Mr. Trump insists he won. Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu have since sought to smooth over their rift. But Mr. Netanyahu went into his meeting at odds with Mr. Trump on several important issues, according to analysts, likely including how to confront Iran's nuclear ambitions and how quickly to end the war in Gaza. The Trump administration has made clear that it wants to see all of the hostages held by Hamas returned and then move on to a grand bargain involving Saudi Arabia that formalizes relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia reiterated support for an independent Palestinian state on Tuesday and said forging ties with Israel would depend on the creation of such a state. Advisors to Mr. Trump told reporters on Tuesday morning that the president and Mr. Netanyahu were united behind the idea that Hamas should not be allowed to remain in power, with Mr. Netanyahu's right-wing government in jeopardy if the war ends with Hamas still in control in Gaza and with no other plan for the area in place. Analysts expect the Israeli Prime Minister to try to delay moving toward a permanent ceasefire. Netanyahu made this salami deal, said Shira Efron, the senior director of policy research at the Israel Policy Forum, a New York-based research group, referring to the three-phased agreement with Hamas. He's always playing for time and kicking the can down the road. Adding to the anxiety in the region were reports on Monday that U.S. intelligence officials believe Iran is seeking to build a cruder atomic weapon that could be developed quickly if the leadership in Tehran decided to do so. Arab countries decry Trump's proposal to take over Gaza Strip. Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Oman, UAE, alongside Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Arab League condemn relocation of Palestinians from Gaza. Arab countries denounced Wednesday U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to take over the Gaza Strip and resettle Palestinians elsewhere. At a press conference in Washington with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu late Tuesday, Trump said the U.S. will take over Gaza after relocating over 2 million Palestinians elsewhere under an extraordinary redevelopment plan that he claimed could turn the enclave into the Riviera of the Middle East. Trump had first triggered uproar last week by suggesting that Palestinians in Gaza should be relocated to Jordan and Egypt, calling the enclave a demolition site after Israel's 15-month war that has claimed more than 47,000 lives. A ceasefire that took hold on January 19 is currently in place. His proposal, however, was vehemently rejected by Amman and Cairo. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said, "We will not allow the rights of our people, for which we have struggled for decades, to be infringed upon. And peace and stability in the region will not be achieved without the establishment of the Palestinian state," he added. The Saudi Foreign Ministry reaffirmed its unequivocal rejection of any infringement on the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, whether through Israeli settlement policies, land annexation, or attempts to displace the Palestinian people from their land. Jordan's royal court said King Abdullah warned of the dangerous attempts to displace Palestinians, stressing that any solution will not be at the expense of the security and stability of Jordan and the region. He reaffirmed the need to step up Arab efforts to support the steadfastness of Palestinians on their land, maintain the Gaza ceasefire, and enhance the humanitarian response in the Strip. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelhadi highlighted the urgent need for advancing recovery projects in Gaza, ensuring aid delivery and clearing rubble without displacing Palestinians from the enclave. The Omani Foreign Ministry reaffirmed its steadfast position and outright rejection of any attempts to displace the residents of Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories, emphasizing the necessity of respecting the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people to establish their independent state on their land. Oman stressed that any plans aimed at relocating Palestinians from their homeland constitute a blatant violation of international law and UN resolutions, posing a threat to regional security and stability. The UAE Foreign Ministry also stressed its categorical rejection of any infringement on the Palestinians' unalienable rights and any attempts of displacement, reaffirming the importance of halting any settlement activities which threaten regional stability and undermine the opportunities for peace and coexistence. At the organizational level, Arab Parliament Speaker Mohammed al-Yamahi expressed the parliament's strong rejection and condemnation of Trump's remarks, advocating for control over Gaza and the forced displacement of the Palestinian people, calling them a violation of international law and Palestinian legitimate rights. The parliament firmly rejected any attempts to eliminate the Palestinian cause or impose unjust solutions, stressing that any attempt to enforce the forced displacement of the Palestinian people constitutes against humanity. Similarly, the General Secretariat of the Arab League said President Trump's remarks promote a scenario of Palestinian displacement that is rejected both regionally and internationally and is in clear of international law. It emphasized that such proposals would lead to instability and do not contribute to achieving the two-state solution, which remains the only viable path to peace and security between Palestinians and Israelis, as well as in the broader region. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation said Trump's statements contribute to the consolidation of occupation, colonial settlement, and the forcible seizure of Palestinian land, which constitutes a flagrant violation of the principles of international law and relevant United Nations resolutions, including Security Council Resolution Number 2334, and that this would undermine the chances of peace and destabilize the region. The Islamic grouping also expressed its absolute rejection of any plans aimed at changing the geographical, demographic, or legal reality of the occupied Palestinian territory, stressing that the Gaza Strip is an integral part of the occupied state of Palestine. An Arab ministerial meeting in Cairo on Saturday also rejected Palestinian displacement from Gaza and renewed calls for implementing a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It emphasized that such proposals would lead to instability and do not contribute to achieving the two-state solution, which remains the only viable path to peace and security between Palestinians and Israelis, as well as in the broader region. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation said Trump's statements contribute to the consolidation of occupation, colonial settlement, and the forcible seizure of Palestinian land, which constitutes a flagrant of the principles of international law and relevant United Nations resolutions, including Security Council Resolution Number 2334, and that this would undermine the chances of peace and destabilize the region. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog, same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog. Thank you.